بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولي المؤمنين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين وبعد. So what I'm gonna do is put something on the board, and we have a very diverse audience here today, from converts to people who were born Muslims, raised practicing Islam, and our non-Muslim brothers and sisters in humanity. I'm going to put these prompts in front of you, and I want you to, again, if you want to give an answer, please make sure that it's 30 seconds or less. Okay, make sure that it's 30 seconds or less. And if it's something like related to, a little bit longer, then go ahead and type it up and share it in the Zoom webinar chat, because we want to read it. We want to hear from each and every single one of you when it comes to this concept of hijab. Okay, this conversation normally can get a little like all over the place. It can become qualitative or it should be quantitative and vice versa. So I want you to correlate the concept of justice and equality to these questions about Islam, or specifically hijab. Now, normally, whenever people start to talk about hijab and the concept of justice and equality with regards to what is fair, it normally comes within the realm of these questions. So if you want to add something different, you can, or you can follow the prompts here on the manifestation of where these doubts about hijab come from. So first being, why do Muslim women have to wear hijab? Or why do women have to wear hijab and men don't? Some people, they stop at the first question. Some people, they add a little bit more to it, like the second one here. Or does hijab equal modesty? Does hijab equal modesty? And the next question, of course, being, does hijab equal Islam? Is hijab and Islam equal? Meaning, if I don't wear hijab, does it mean I'm not Muslim? And then, because of the concept of hijab, it kind of bleeds into some other areas of discussion. And speaking with non-Muslims, we get questions like this all the time, but even Muslims, they ask it sometimes, right? For example, why is it that Muslim women can't? Now, it starts with hijab. Why do they have to wear it, but men don't? Or does hijab make someone modest or immodest if they don't wear it? So the next question becomes, why is it that Muslim women, they can't lead men in prayer? Or, by the way, why is it that the Muslim woman, she has to wear hijab and she has to pray behind the man and she can't lead the prayer? You see how these questions, they kind of become compounded? Or why is it that Muslim women can't give Friday sermons or really do anything in a public forum when it comes to the masajid or the mosques? Why is it that Muslim women, they can't, speak publicly or things like this? So,
And for the record, I do think that that's very unfair.
well, that's what we're here to discuss, because a lot of these are misconceptions, right? So take a moment. If you have the question, post it in the Zoom webinar chat. Take a moment, gather your thoughts, put it together, and then share. Is this accurate? Is it inaccurate? Where does it come from? We will give you, let's say, 3 minutes, 6:55 Central Standard Time, 7:55 Eastern Standard Time, to just kind of discuss and reflect on these points. And once again, to everyone who joined us, we thank you for taking time out of your Monday evening to do so. So you can use the prompts that are here, or if you want, you can use something else. All right, we're starting to see them come into the Zoom webinar chat. Please do participate. We want to hear from each of you. As it comes in, I'm going to go ahead and share some of the stuff that we're seeing. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for sharing, Salam. Okay. The reason why a Muslim woman has to wear hijab because Allah honored them to wear it for their religious reasons. Just yesterday, I saw outrage over Muslim women not being imams while Christians and Jews have female rabbis and priests. Okay. I think I heard something similar to this, that like a reporter was asking these like very targeted questions, right? You know, why don't you have female imams? You know, things like this. I was raised Baptist. Women in my church led prayers and gave sermons. They were ordained. I don't understand why things can't be the same way for us. It's a good question to ask. That's what we're here for. How come the limit of modesty for women is different than that for men is different than that for women? I'm gonna copy this question. I'm gonna add it to this doc. This is a really good question. Thank you for sharing that. Women wear hijab because they have beauty. You saying that the brothers aren't beautiful? So the women have the beauty, but the brothers, astaghfirullah, I guess not. Muslim women wear hijab because it is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Luis, he asked the same thing I asked. Can't men have beauty as well? Okay. Is it sinful to wear hijab without the right intention, wear it primarily to please Allah, or are you just without reward? Now, this is a more complex question. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add this to the doc. Let me just put this over here. If you send a question that I may not be able to like address within the framework of the talk, then what I'll do is I'll put it to the side and we'll come back and answer it. Okay. Yeah, okay. So it was from a reporter who was being rude. You know, people they tried to attack Islam in many different ways. And that's why we're here to kind of like clarify these things. So welcome. As far as I know, it's an order from Allah. However, any order from Allah is always for our benefit, protection, and out of His wisdom. As for the reasons as to why Allah did so, we can extract some of them from the hadith and the stories from the time of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. I really like this answer. I really like this answer because it ties back to the concept of we do this because Allah told us to. But sometimes that's not enough for some people. Because note that like some people will say, "Oh, you're crazy, you're crazy cult, man. You're crazy religion that has your women wearing these little things all over them, man. Like, what is this, man?" You know, like people they get a little offended, they get edgy. Okay. Technically, hijab is supposed to be observed by men in the sense that they are to dress modestly, lower their gaze, etc. It's just women cover their hair when observing hijab. All right. Now let me ask y'all a question. Do men wear hijab? You can unmute yourself and say yes or no. Elizabeth, I seen you nod yes. I seen you nodded yes. Is this true? Yes, we can see you all. Hey lad, that's a nice smile you have. Do men wear hijab? If I do this, am I hijabi now? Am I technically hijabi? Yes or no? Mustafa, did you just nod yes? Am I now suddenly a hijabi? Now I'm scrolling down. I can't see all of your comments at the same time. I hope someone didn't kick me out the religion because of that just now. Okay, Elizabeth also added, women wear hijab to keep others, not just men, from focusing on things that are temporary in this world like beauty or fashion. Instead, we are more inclined to focus on things like language and intelligence. Now that's really, really deep. She added a question: can women who wear hijab or Muslim women in general still have careers in social media? Something I've seen a growth in. Yeah, you know, I actually was talking with a sister who, you know, without saying too much about her, I was speaking with some brothers about this. She has a large following on social media, like around 325,000 followers. And she said that she was approached and offered $10,000 to take off hijab on social media. It's crazy, right? Hijab is to make women more beautiful in Islam. I cannot endorse that. There's a reason, but I see why you said it. I see why you said it. Hair is a huge part of women's beauty. Men, not so much, I'd say, but both cover up their body when they choose to observe hijab. But that doesn't answer my question. Do men have to wear hijab? Hijab is to cover the awrah of both men and women. Huh? Is it? There have been so many revered women in Islam, and they weren't allowed to give talks of wisdom in public setting like a khutbah. Why not? Are you sure? I see your question, but are you sure that that was the case? That women were not allowed to publicly address people? Is that an Islamic thing that women cannot publicly address people? I've heard people say they shouldn't because they should not create an avenue for people to look at them. Okay. Okay. Muslims have female sheikhs and ustadas. All right. Sister Senna is coming in with this. Being imam is a great honor, but anyone can do it. It requires skill, and most people can agree that it doesn't represent a position of power over others because imams can change. I've always felt empowered knowing that the realm of knowledge and social change is encouraged for Muslim women always. There's even a hadith that says that knowledge is required for both men and women. And I like this direction because sometimes we become so consumed with juxtaposing or contrasting Islam against other things that we don't see the beauty of our own faith. We become very, very critical of what Islam is not because other things do this or do that. This is both something that non-Muslims use to attack the religion, like that reporter that the sister pointed out. She said that, you know, they were attacking, you know, like a very aggressive reporter was asking, oh, why don't you have female imams? You know, Christians, they have female pastors. It's like you're so consumed by trying to say what Islam isn't that you don't even want to know what it is. And that can be very difficult for us to have an equal playing field in the conversation of what we believe in and what we are and what we think and how we feel. I really like that answer a lot. Thank you for sharing that. I think the questions, Razan said, along the lines of women can't do X if men can, or why do women have to, come from the idea that women and men have to be exactly the same. Gender equality is important, but it shouldn't be achieved through ignoring the differences between men and women. Now that's
But
really,
that's
really
not
deep.
equality then. That's the thing. If saying that women can't do X, but men can is inherently not equality.
Right. You're right. It's kind of like, you know, living in a society that promotes human rights and says that all people were created equal. But of course, you know that depending on the shade of your skin, the way that you treat it in some places is much different than others. That's not equality.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's equally unfair and equally ridiculous.
Right. But here's a question that I will put forward to each and every single one of you, and a question that I want each and every single one of you to reflect on, because we're going to actually address this today. Who is the authority on morality? Who is the authority on ethics? Who is the authority on right and wrong? Who is the authority on justice and equality? Who? Is it me? Is it you? Is it our society? Is it government? You know, there's a famous Muslim speaker who talks about this notion, and even Malcolm X mentioned this notion of privileged white men speaking on behalf of everyone, and that becoming the concept that we all utilize to understand the society that we live in. It's like you reject the notion of the voice that it's coming from and just accept it as an authority. But is that the truth of where ethics come from, of where morality comes from, of where equality comes from? Metaphorical hijab to an extent, yes, yes, no. They're supposed to at least. Okay, Nabila, where does it say that men wear hijab? We got to cover that. I like that, Ali. I mean, we got to cover our own. Okay, that's true. Covering. Okay, but is just because you cover I see some people are sharing this. For those of you who don't know what this word means, this is a part of the body that's not meant to be seen in a public space, right? Awra is the part of the body that's not meant to be seen in a public space, like a part, it depends, it varies. So we all have to cover it, but is covering it hijab? And if yes, where do you see that? G, okay. Hijab means to cover a barrier. So yes, men wear hijab. I don't know. That sounds like some correlation. Have you ever seen these words put together in a hadith or an ayah? In the Quran or in the prophetic narrations, have you ever seen these two things together? That's my first question. The second question is, have you ever seen modesty and hijab put together in an ayah, in a verse in the Quran, or in a hadith? Have you ever seen them put together? You're not going to find it. Is the pressure for women to stay away from social media to preserve hijab, and why? That's a much bigger discussion. We'll be talking about this, the fiqh of social media, but not here. That's an Embrace event that's coming up. Women can publicly address people. I'm pretty sure Aisha radiallahu anha did it. And that's right. Women can publicly address people in Islam. There's nothing that says that you're not allowed to. But now we have to make distinctions between culture and religion. We have to make those distinctions, and we have to be fair. Women cannot be imams. Yes, that's true. That's true. Imams of masajid, but they can be an imama of an organization, or an amira is a better phrase. We wouldn't say imama because it's too close to imama, and that's something that you can also wear. An amira is a leader, and we do have female leaders of organizations and things like this. It does exist. It's not even an issue. Yes, hijab for men and women in the sense that there is hijab. Yeah, I like this. Where does this come from, though? Does anyone know where this comes from? But I do like your answer. So yes, hijab is for everyone, but where does this come from? I'm scrolling down. All right, I've seen a lot of Allah. I don't know why y'all sent that. God Almighty. Oh, okay, it was an answer to a question. The Quran, Allah, no question about that. All right. Yes, yes. Oh, okay, that was the answer to my question. It's like 70 messages here. I'm just scrolling. Don't worry, we're gonna get back to the top. We just scrolling. With ex-Muslims, atheists in America, they have a foundation of faithless hijabis, and they are so awful. Yeah, they say some really bad stuff. A lot of the problems in society originate from the fact that men are trying to legislate laws and morals upon other men. Okay, Hamza getting kind of deep in here. Okay. Feminism was a movement for women who were suppressed by men. So juxtaposing Islam with feminism is just fundamentally wrong. We tend to see everything from a secular lens, and that's just very destructive to Muslim mindsets. And that's also very true. I admit I do sometimes regret my decision to convert simply because I do not feel that Islam lives up to its egalitarian ideal. And this is a very important thing that our sister shared with us. And that's something that we're going to have to really sit down and address today. And for our sister, let me just go ahead and share this with you all. For those of you who have any questions about Islam, for our non-Muslim brothers and sisters, and anyone who has questions about this, please reach out to me. Okay, please reach out to me directly. And for those of you who are converts who became Muslim and are looking for like a broader community to connect yourself with, please, we have Sister Nahila, Sister Arinda. They are here, and they're a part of Embrace, and they will embrace you, and they will help make these things easy for you.
What do you think about this?
I think, I mean, you feel comfortable, you vibing, okay?
Yeah.
All right, then if it's good for you, then, do you.
Can I share a verse in the Quran? I think it relates.
Sure.
It's in Surah Nisa, verse 32. It says, "And do not wish for things in which Allah has made some of you to excel others in. For men there is a reward for what they have earned, and for women there is a reward for what they have earned." and ask Allah for his bounty. Surely Allah is ever all knower of everything. So like Allah gave some rights to men and some rights to women, but we're still equal in his eyes. Like for men, just because they can be imams and women can't, that doesn't make us any less. Likewise, like Allah gave women certain rights that he didn't give men, that doesn't make men any less. Like we get the right to keep all our like money, but men have to share their own, like even if they earned their own money, they still have to like share it with his family. So
Right.
yeah, I don't think we should be wishing like, oh, men can be imams. I need to be an imam so that way I can like get Allah's blessings, because it Allah didn't say like we're less because we can't be imams. It's just a job that he reserved for men, the way he reserved certain rights for women.
Right. And this is a really good point that you've made, Sister Namira. And I'm glad that you took the time to actually share a verse from the Quran, right? Because it's easy to say, I think, I feel, I think, I feel, I think, I feel, in my opinion, in my opinion. But honestly, none of us will know God through our own opinion, because God is not subjected to what we think or feel. When God created everything in the universe, did God ask us what we thought? I'm gonna put some stars over here. What do you think? Hey, I want you to be born in 1998. You cool with that? Yeah, your parents are gonna be Caucasian Americans. You all right with that?
Mine already are.
It's not sarcastic, because I'm not really sarcastic. It's a rhetorical question, right? Rhetorical question to say God does not need to consult when God creates. So the same is true for ethics, right? And I know that, yeah, you know, our sister, Dr. Layla, who's been Muslim for 40 plus years, may God preserve her. And if you go on our Why Islam Dallas page, maybe Zishan or someone can share this here. We have her journey to faith, where she talked about how she became Muslim. And I encourage everyone here to look at that and to check that out on Why Islam Dallas YouTube channel. But Islam is a perfect religion practiced by imperfect people. We don't want to move too far from the conversation of hijab, but this is my point. You see how us talking about hijab opened up all these other doors of equality, egalitarianism, equity. And I believe our sister had even pointed out, please tell me how you say your name. Is it Carissa? Carissa? Did I say it right? Carissa?
Carissa.
Carissa, yes, welcome. And I really appreciate what you said. Equality and equity are not the same. Equality and equity are not the same. That's why in the Bill of Rights, you will find that all men are created equal. But this was said at a time that Black people were being enslaved. See? So there's the concept of, yeah, we're equal, but it doesn't mean that everything is equitable. And Islam is pro-equity, because not everything is exactly equal. In fact, to make two things that are not the same equal is its own form of injustice. But we're not here to talk specifically about gender roles. But you see how the conversation of hijab delineates into those conversations? So let me keep it moving, and I'll come back to these questions at the end if you want to hear more about this. So playing 5D chess, as I like to do, I have a notion to put forward to each and every single one of you. What is hijab? Because if you're telling me that hijab is technically applied for men and women, if you're telling me that hijab is just covering specific parts of your body, if you're telling me that hijab has to do with hair, if you're telling me that hijab now talks about equal rights between men and women and egalitarianism and stuff, then what is it? Have we made hijab conceptual? Have we made hijab too general? Have we made hijab something that's very subjective? Have we made hijab something that is even oppressive? We have to ask ourselves these questions. And Sanat, she said, I think we overthink it. You know, hijab is actually in the Quran. It's a very, very simple thing. It's very, very simple. And Muntaha, she said, in my opinion, I think hijab is a representation of faith and modesty physically and mentally. And that's great. But is hijab what you think and what I think? Is it her jab, his jab, our jab, they jab? And whose jab is it? Whose jab is it? Hijab. What did Allah say about it? Why jab? What did Allah say about it? In the Quran, it's actually very simple. It's in the 24th chapter, the 31st verse. I encourage all of you to go read it. I won't spoil you too much today by going into all the ayats, but that is the only verse in the Quran that talks about hijab. It's very simple. It tell the believing women to lower their gaze, and then boom, it tells you what it's supposed to look like. And that's it. Allah did not make it about equal. Allah did not make it about female versus male. Allah did not make it about any of those things. And to say that Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Sikhism are all perfect religion practiced by imperfect people is horribly inaccurate. And you know, we cannot shy away from the truth when it's meant to be said. So, because we're not here to talk about every other religion, please attend our comparative religious studies classes for you to understand this more. Back to the concept of hijab. You can read it to me maybe after or send it to my email, since we're here to talk about hijab, brother. Yeah, it says, tell the believing men to cast down their looks, and tell the believing women to cast down their looks. That's in the 30th and 31st verses respectively. So now we can understand very, very clearly that this concept of hijab, it is something that maybe like we add a little bit too much to, right? And Brother Ubayd, may Allah bless him, he kind of he added something here where, you know, he shared the verse, and it outlines it very, very clearly. It outlines it very, very clearly. So when we start talking about this concept of hijab and what it looks like and how it's supposed to be and so on and so forth, it's not about any of these additional elements that we unfortunately added. It's actually a lot simpler. So it's not an open definition, and it's not so subjective. Like when we start talking about gravity, and I was using this analogy talking to one of our brothers and sisters in humanity earlier today before this class, when we start talking about gravity, does anyone say, well, you know, in my opinion, gravity is just like, no. We say what goes up must come down. That's as clear. The same way gravity is clear is the same way this verse is clear. You would not apply like ethics to gravity. You would not apply like equality to gravity. It's that simple. It's that clear. So here's where the miscorrelations kind of come into play. The first is choice. On one hand, there is an entire demographic of non-Muslims who say women are oppressed by hijab. You poor thing, aren't you hot in that? By the way, that's one of my favorite Instagram comic book strips. Yes, I'm hot in this. It's so funny. But anyways, so when it comes to like this concept of hijab, they look at you like, you poor thing. Like they think some man came into your room and woke you up and like shook you and was like, put this on. It's like tied it to your head. It's like, okay, go outside. Wait, come back in. It's like that's not what hijab is. That's not what hijab is. Feminism can be defined as equality between sexes. Equality of sexes does not always equal to protection of women's right. If I and my husband were equal, I couldn't have my own bank account, and then I have to share a bank account with my husband. I couldn't claim my own money, so on and so. Yes, someone actually told me you don't have to wear that here. It's a free country. So I guess you know, we don't have to wear anything here. It's a free country. Well, actually, by law, you have to wear clothes. So I guess it's not too free. It's free enough. I think people make a big deal out of hijab because there's a history of men in the Muslim community abusing women, and that's why a lot of women want to talk about our rights. And to a certain extent, I can agree with that. Obviously, we don't want to overgeneralize, but yeah, there is this kind of concept of abuse or chauvinism. But these things are cultural. They're not intrinsic to the religion. You're not going to find something in the faith that says, do these things, be this way, right? So the first miscorrelation is the idea that women don't have a choice. No, you choose to put it on, right? You do have very much a choice. Or like this journey of hijab. Like you'll find like some YouTubers or social media influencers, they talk about their journey to take it off, you know? But that means that the journey wasn't taken for the sake of Allah. It wasn't taken for God. It was taken for something other than that. Because just like how you have the choice to wear hijab or not, you have the choice to pray or not. You have the choice to believe or not. We all have these choices, and it is truly our choice. Or this concept of oppression, that because you choose to wear this, you are fundamentally oppressed. Because you don't get to show as much of your skin as other people, that's not fair. But who says showing more is more free? Who said that? Especially when you live in a society where the hypersexualization of women and the objectification of women is literally an entire market. We sell the image of women, right? So this concept of like that comes from the Muslim community, and it's unfortunate. But again, Islam is a perfect religion practiced by imperfect people. Is that if a woman doesn't wear hijab, she's less than. I was actually talking with Brother Obaid about this a few days ago. Like, just because a woman doesn't wear hijab, it doesn't mean she's not a Muslim. Or that she's meant to be judged or outcast or hated. Like, that's not a thing. Culturally, people, they kind of project and they add these extra things to it, right? Or this idea of modesty. And whenever I talk to Dr. Layla about this, I swear by the one that created all of us, that there is absolutely nothing in this faith that says that if you wear hijab, you are modest. It's not a thing. And I know that that may sound weird out loud, but I looked at 29,000 hadith. There's not a single one that says modesty and hijab at the same time. Now, yes, walking around, if a man walks around with, his chest out and stuff like that, yes, it's immodest. It's true. But at the same time, if he dressed completely covered and he spoke in a very vulgar way, then the Islamic definition of hayat would not apply to him. So this idea of saying how you look is equal to the extent of your modesty is actually absolutely wrong, and it doesn't have any place in our religion or our faith. I don't know where it came from. I tried looking it up. I don't know where it came from, but it's a big thing, a big deal. If I ask you to translate hayat for me, the word hayat for me, you would probably say modesty, but that's not what it means in Arabic. Hayat, it actually means self-preservation. And yes, as our sister pointed out, it has the same root letters as life, not as shy. It has the same root letters as life. So when you say I have hayat, it means I'm preserving my life. I'm preserving my essence. I'm preserving my being. Now I see we got some people talking in the comment section. That's Dr. Anila. Salam, Dr. Anila.
Wassalam.
Welcome. So this whole idea of modesty is sometimes the reason why we run into these conversations, because I know this, especially working in Islamic outreach. If whenever you see like a woman talk to another woman and she asks, why do you wear hijab? She says it's because I'm modest or out of modesty. Does it mean that if you don't wear hijab, you're immodest? You see how that can kind of like project this illusion of judgment? It can be harmful to your outreach. So aside from the miscorrelations, we do have these misrepresentations of what hijab is. For example, men wear hijab too. No, we don't. I'm sorry, but we don't. Men do not wear hijab. Hijab is something that is exclusive for being a Muslim woman. Just like how being the qawwam, being the caretaker of the household, is something that is also exclusive for a Muslim man. They're not the same. Okay? So that's a misrepresentation of the concept of hijab. Because what's very clear is in this verse in the Quran, is this is something for women. It's not a man thing. Okay? Another thing is culture. And it's not just back home culture, it's also American culture, where we think that like my expression of hijab is whatever I think and I feel. No, the way that it's defined is actually very, very clear. If you want to wear colors, if you want to wear it this way or that way, style it the way that you want. But it's not subjective. It's not based on whatever you think it is. It's not a concept. It's a reality. It's essentially like a uniform. So oftentimes the thing that makes us hate the idea of hijab, or even in conversations with non-Muslims and stuff like this, we compare this concept that God tells us to do, we compare it to our society as and tell me if I say your name wrong. Is it Nazaha? Nazaha?
Yes, that's
Nazaha?
correct. I couldn't find the
Nazaha?
unmute button. Yeah.
Okay. As Nazaha had mentioned, I think because some people use Islam as a tool of oppression, including hijab, it's hard for some women in the community to disassociate the oppression from hijab. And we talk about this sometimes, this idea of being hurt by religion. In our comparative religious studies classes and even in our interfaith dialogues, we talk about this idea of being hurt by faith. The faith, Islam is not here to hurt you. If a Muslim says, "Oh, astaghfirullah, sister, what are you doing? Oh my God, that's wrong," and they treat you like that, that doesn't mean that that has anything to do with your Lord. Your Creator did not say that to you. So don't hate the concept because of how a person treated you with it. You know? So we compare the society that says women should be, on TikTok, ticking. We say, okay, well, if I'm wearing this, I can't do like no. They're not equal. They're not the same. And that's the reason why I put all of these things in quotation marks, because none of that has anything to do with Islam. All of this stuff, choice, journey, oppression, judgment, modesty. Men wear hijab too, culture, society, the era that we live in, the world that we live in, the country we live in. None of it has anything to do with Islam. Show me one verse from the book that Muslims believe in where it says these things. It's not there. By God's permission, I was able to memorize Quran. It's not there. By God's permission, I specialize in hadith. I've not seen it. It's not there. So if it's not in the book of God Almighty, and if it's not in the prophetic guidance of the Sunnah, then where does this come from? Somewhere else. And we have to be willing to make distinctions between divine ordinance, what God said to do, cultural influence, and societal opinionating. We can all say, I think, I feel, I think, I feel, I think, I feel. But at the end of the day, that's not what's real. The reality is what God told us it is. So we roll with that. And we take that, and we take those. So before we get into the actual concept of hijab, I want to just kind of go on a little bit. Can I go on a little bit of a tangent? Is that okay? Just a small tangent, a little tangent. Mustafa, can I go on a little tangent? Sister Ashley, I know you're tired. Can I just a little tangent? Yes, we good? Small tangent, little one. Sister Yasmin, you good with that? Little tangent?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I see that y'all are talking a lot in the comment section, but I humbly ask you to stop. And the reason for that is because when you read the black and white words on the screen, it lacks tone. Sometimes you may imply a tone, or, human beings are not designed to communicate exclusively through written communication. So just hold off on that for a minute. Okay? Now, there is a social dilemma. We're not talking about the documentary on YouTube or on Netflix. And that's filtering faith through the secularist socialization. What do I mean by that? Whenever you add social constructs to how you think about the world that you live in, then that will subvert you from the love of God Almighty. That is not like the creation. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you start talking about equality between genders, who told you that? My society. Is your society an authority on what is purely right and purely wrong? No. How do we know your society is not the supreme authority? Because the society is imperfect. That's why we say Islam is the perfect religion practiced by imperfect people. The closer you align yourself with this way of life, the more you will benefit from it. The more you masquerade as someone who is saying Islam but doing something un-Islamic, the less you will benefit from it. You see? So we sometimes confuse culture with character. You are not modest because of what someone says is modesty. You're modest because of what God told you to do and how you try your best every single day to achieve that. I was Muslim for a year before I ever started praying. I know some sisters who become Muslim, and you know, for them, some of them, they put hijab on. It's not an issue. Some of them, they don't wear hijab at all, and it's a big source of issue. It's a test for them. Born Muslims, converts, so on and so forth. But who is the standard for this? It's not our society. It's not the world that we live in. No, it's God Almighty. That has to be what we go back to. So we don't want to be projecting insecurities in our ignorance. We don't want to be projecting, well, you know, I feel that it's unfair. Would you say that God is unfair? When God gave you your lungs that you breathe with, your eyes that you see with, your ears that you hear with, the skin that you feel with, the tongue that you taste with, would you say that God was unfair when he gave you your capacity to think and feel and be? Would you say that? So why would God, who did not create anything in the universe unfairly, suddenly become unfair when it comes to your gender? God did not create the stars going to war with each other, even though Disney made a lot of money off of Star Wars, even though they ruined the franchise. Sorry, that's a little tangential. But even though the stars don't go to war, regardless of Star Wars, there's nothing in the universe that is unfair or unbalanced. The sun is perfectly 96 million miles away from our Earth, so that we don't get too hot and we don't get too cold. Would you say God was unfair when he put the sun in the sky? The moon is perfectly distanced, perfectly shaped, so that the waves in the ocean can benefit from the gravitational pull of it. Would we say that God was, so why would God be unfair with hijab? Why would the creator suddenly become unfair when it comes to men and women? It doesn't make any sense. We don't want to project these things onto God. So the case study for how we know that this is kind of unreal is justice and equality. Who defines justice and equality better than God? Who? It's not fair that women have to, but men don't, for example. Based on what? If God said hop on 1 foot, then I would consider that to be more fair than walking on 2 feet if everyone on the face of the planet said to do that. Because God gave me both of my feet. So if God said hop, I'd be hopping. Whenever it comes to that concept of justice and equality, you know, I got pulled over and got a car ticket the other day. I've experienced some extreme heartache in my life in these recent days. I've experienced some extreme difficulty in my personal life, and everyone goes through different things. Every single one of us is going through different things. When I got pulled over by that cop, do you know what I thought to myself? Why wasn't the speed limit like 15 miles a little bit higher? I swear to God, I swear to God. That's the first thing when he pulled me over. I was, and you know, we in Texas, so I wasn't even in the same lane as him. He was on the other side of a margin of the barrier, and he came around and he came and got me. I mean, thank you for praying for me. He came around to come get me. First thing he did, I knew how fast I was going, and I knew why he did it. I said, why isn't the speed limit at least 15 miles per hour faster? Is that fair for me to think that? No, I should have looked at the signs and I should have followed it. I should have followed it. So what about God? Will we say that the cop was unfair for pulling me over because I was speeding? No. So why would you say God is unfair for telling you what you should wear? And still giving you the choice every single day until you meet him to do it. You see, in Islam, I'm not going to read all of this, I promise. I'm gonna just mention this point. When we start talking about the concept of justice and equality in Islam, justice is something that is fair in judgment, impartial, meaning it's not subjective. It's not based on what I think. Sorry, I just had to let someone in. What I think or what I feel. It's to straighten someone to a state of moral uprightness. This is justice. From disbelief to faith, to offer compensation in place of a punishment. If you never ever break a rule in this country, you will not get a reward for it. Your reward is not going to prison. Your reward is not getting a ticket. Your reward is not having to go to court. But look at the justice of God. If you do good, you get good. If you do bad, you get bad. Sometimes we think, oh, so many things I can't do. Look at all the stuff you can do. It's to set up something as equal to something else, which can give a positive connotation, approximating the first of these, or negative one, referring to sin of shirk. So when we start talking about the maximum sense of justice and equality, it would be whatever the Creator says, not whatever the creation says. And we have to agree upon that as a moral standard. Creator is more fair than you and me. That's because without divine guidance on earthly justice and equity, our salvation would be subjective. Maybe that's a little too verbose. Let me try to simplify it. Without divine guidance, if it was based on what you think and feel is right or wrong, that means that I could be a good person, but I may be in hell by your standards. Or they may be a bad person, but they may be in heaven by your standards. Right? So we have to always be willing to go back to what God said. We have to always be willing to go back to what God said. So the answer to what is just and fair should never lean on human understanding, except in areas where divine guidance leaves room for human discretion, because that would also be a type of guidance. So now that we've kind of like climbed the mountain together, all 63 of us climbing this mountain together, why is this program called the Crown of the Muslimah and not the Crown of Thorns or the Crown of Pins? Why is it called the Crown of the Muslimah? It's because to wear hijab is an honor. It's an honor that Allah gave women and did not give men. A reward for you that I will never be able to achieve or attain. Every second that you wear it is good deeds. I will never be able to compete with you in it. The struggle that you endure to put it on or to even think about it is greater than the struggle that I will ever achieve, because I'll never have to even think about it. Hijab is not unique to Muslims, by the way. I actually counted 13 world religions that have the same concept. In fact, in the Bible, in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 1 through 7, it says if a woman doesn't cover her head, she should shave it. But the only Christians that you see who wear hijab today are nuns. There are many, many different denominations, not even of just Abrahamic faiths, because we know Abraham wasn't Christian or Jew, but not even just monotheistic faiths, even though, if you say God is 3 in 1, it's still more than one God. It's not even just other faiths. Sorry, it's the comparative religious studies that are coming out. It's not even just those other faiths, or like even pagan faiths have the same concept. You'll even find that, people who believed in Norse gods, they would even cover their head. But we don't say that that's unfair. We say that that's their choice. I want you to understand why the hijab is the crown of the Muslim woman. And we're going to leave plenty of time for Q&A and stuff at the end. God loves the Muslimah more than any of you would ever love yourselves, more than you could ever love a woman, more than you could ever love anyone. Don't you know God loves you more? You wouldn't be here if God didn't love you. None of us would exist. Don't you know existence is the greatest gift a person could ever have? To be. In the Quran, in the 4th chapter, in verse 127, the English interpretation of, and they ask you to give religious rulings for women. Meaning, they asked the Prophet Muhammad, give religious rulings for women. God says in the Quran, say only Allah can do that for them. I'm going to give you some examples. The ifk with Aisha. Whenever Aisha, a woman, was accused of committing adultery, the Prophet Muhammad did not investigate it. He had to wait for God to say what happened. Whenever it comes to the concept of inheritance, a woman came to the Prophet Muhammad, right, and asked about this matter of inheritance. He couldn't say anything. He had to wait for God to reveal the answer. There are 2 chapters in the Quran that are actually named after women talking to the Prophet Muhammad. Mujadila, the 58th chapter, a woman came to the Prophet Muhammad and complained. Who answered her complaint? God. Mumtahana. A woman comes to the Prophet Muhammad and she wants to become Muslim and join the Muslims. Who allowed for her to do it? God. There was an issue between the Prophet Muhammad and his wives. Who clarified it in the 65th and the 66th chapter of the Quran? God. So even the Prophet Muhammad was not allowed to give just rulings for women because of this verse in the Quran, chapter 4, verse 127. So why would I, as a man, try to tell you anything about like what you can and can't do when it comes to like what's between you and God? Hijab is the crown of the Muslimah because God chose it for you. And he didn't choose it for me. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he came to empower women. And there's so many examples of him empowering women. See, the problem is we try to filter these notions of Islam through the lens of our society. But you got to understand, Islam is not a societal religion. It's not a social religion. It's a universal religion that will exist until the end of time. That's why a fifth of every person on the planet is a Muslim, and the most common name in the world is Muhammad. It will exist until the end of time. Islam is divine and it's not restricted to social constructs or this society or this era. It's not bound by that. It would be foolish to reverse engineer this correlation of societal norms to something that's not bound to it. What does that mean? God is not feminist. God is not sexist. God is not chauvinist. God is not misogynistic. God is not nationalistic. God is not racist because God is not human. Islam comes from God. So Islam cannot be feminist or chauvinistic or misogynistic or racist. People can be, but you won't find it in the faith. It's not in there. You find the opposite. So just to, because sometimes when it comes to talks about hijab, like people are like, I want a sister to talk about hijab. Fair. That's fair. But the command was revealed to a man. You may say that doesn't make any sense. It's because it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman in Islam. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. The Sunnah is represented by a man. Prophetic guidance is represented by a man. But the Islamic jurisprudence was transmitted by women. There's a book by a scholar named Akram al-Nadawi where he collected 26,000 women who narrated the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. So a man is representing it, but women are narrating it. That's because it's not bound by gender norms of 2021. There are many rulings in Islam that actually subvert social constructs that hindered women equity. For example, divorce. For example, marriage. For example, inheritance. For example, killing female children and letting the boys live. In that society, those things were normal. And Islam came and said, nope, yeeted all of it. Right out the bond, it's gone. Got rid of all of it. So Allah tells us that men and women are different in their creation. Yes, our creation is different. This is a biological scientific truth. Our creation is not the same. If you have doubt, come for a different class. We'll talk about it. But our ajr, our reward is equal. So no, our creation is not the same. No more than zebras are like horses. No more than lions are like tigers. Yeah, they're the same genus type in taxonomy, but they're not the same. They're different. But our reward, God says it's the same. In chapter 3, verse 195, the reward of a man and the reward of a woman will never be lost on God. When you do what you can, when you do your best, God will reward you. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Don't you know that that's way more important than anything in our society today? And in chapter 33, verse 35, men and women who submit to God, who believe in God, who do the very best that they can, all of them, all together, they all get the reward from God. There's no special man heaven and there's no woman heaven. So I want you to, just to close my points here, next 2 minutes, 3 minutes, Islam means to attain peace and purity by following the commandments of the creator of everything that exists, and whoever does that is a Muslim. Islam means to attain peace and purity by following the commandments of the creator of everything that exists, and whoever does that is a Muslim. Islam means to attain peace and purity by following the commandments of the creator of everything that exists, and whoever does that is a Muslim. That hijab is not meant to be a source of discontentment or hatred or oppression. It's a source of peace and purity, revealed by the creator of everything that exists, that is not a man or a woman. Whoever does that is a Muslim. So because of that, Islam can't be conducive with oppression, because it means to attain peace and purity. Or subjugation of women, because peace and purity does not come through subjugation. By definition, anything other than what Islam is less than Islam. By definition, anything that is less than what Islam is less than Islam. So the minute that you add culture, the minute that you add your opinion, the minute that you add your feelings, you are subtracting something from Islam to add whatever you think or feel, to add your culture, to add your feelings, to add your ideas. That's less than Islam. It's not the same.
There's a really good quote that I read somewhere. It was like, are you implementing Islam into your life, or are you implementing your life into Islam?
Ooh. Someone put that on their Instagram. Someone tweet that. Tweet. You know, I'm on social media, but I don't have social media. I'm sure this is how this works, right? That was a good quote. Thank you for sharing that, Nabil. So, to conclude, hijab is the majestic adornment that the Creator bestowed upon the noble women who believe in Him, as an expression of their belief, reliance, hope, and trust in God alone without any co-equals. And because of that, hijab is three things. It's a manifestation of what is between God and the one who worships God. It's a barrier against the exploitation of the backbone of every society. Let me give a little tafsir of this. Let me explain this a little bit. We live in a society where women are objectified in the music industry, in the modeling industry, in the alcohol industry, in the pornography industry. In every industry you can imagine, women are objectified and exploited for their looks and their figure alone. And if every atom has like a nucleus and protons and electrons and things that make it up, then the backbone of every society is the woman, because the building blocks of every community is a family. And if you compromise the structure from which families are brought forth, which is through women, then you compromise the community and you compromise the society. So when a woman only sees her value in her looks and doing some stupid twitchy dance on TikTok in order to get ticks, then now you have compromised the society as a whole. And so the hijab, it does serve as a protection against that exploitation. And that means that I have to see your value as a person first, not your looks or anything other than that. Women who cannot have children are still a part of the society. In fact, all of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad, they didn't have children with them, except one who had died. And they're the building blocks. Without them, we don't have the religion. So you see how they still contributed? So look at how the religion even shows women are not just created to have children. Which one of the wives of Prophet Muhammad had his kids? But don't you know, without them, we call them our mothers. You know, if I meet like our aunties, I say that's my mom. Ami, Jan, Ummi, you know, we get big shout outs. Because the mothers of the believers, they start with the Aishas of the world, the Zainabs of the world. But our aunties, they still carry that legacy too. Every day they put on hijab, they carry it too. And last but not least, it's the preservation of what is sacred by way of a woman's integrity and identity for those whom she determines are worthy of access through sacred bonds and sound commitment. Because you know, in Islam, woman, she gets to pick who she marries. Now, culturally, your parents may pick, but in the religion, you make the choice. So now you get to pick who has access to the things that you choose to restrict Who gets to see what part of you choose to show or not show? And who can compromise a person that has that level of power over themselves because of what God had empowered them with? Who? And that's why the hijab is a crown, not a chain. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, additions, omissions, suggestions, or objections to anything that we shared today? I know this was, I know that this is kind of long. But you know, our sisters, you know, with World Hijab Day, they had started this on the 1st, and they want to keep it going throughout the month. So we at least want to open this conversation and have it with everyone, and we appreciate everyone coming and participating in it. You know, we had over 100 people sign up for this event, and 63 stayed from start to finish, which is a lot, you know. And I know everybody wants a recording. So we really appreciate you all taking the time to come and to have this discussion with us. I just want to say, as your brother in faith, to my brothers and sisters in humanity, to my brothers and sisters in Islam, and specifically to my sisters in humanity and to my sisters in Islam, that hijab is an honor. And don't let anyone or anything convince you otherwise. Don't let anyone or anything ever convince you otherwise. Not even your own feelings. Don't let your feelings convince you otherwise. It's an honor. Just like how it's an honor to know God. It's an honor to do what God told you to do. An honor. Just like how, you know, some people will be honored if the boss invites them to do X, Y, and Z. I'm honored. Oh, it's an honor. They invited me over. You have a good time if, what's her name? Charlie D'Amelio invited you to the crib to do a talk with her. Big honor. You'd be so happy if Charlie D'Amelio or whatever her name is. What is it? I don't care. I mean, may God guide her. I mean, you'd be honored to do a little talk with the thick ticks. Or you'd be happy. I mean, unfortunately, this is the world we live in. If James Charles was like, hey, sister, let me do your makeup, you'd be like, oh, you'd be freaking out. You'd be freaking out for James Charles to put some makeup on your face. It's an honor. If you would be honored by the creation for some makeup and some stuff like that, then wouldn't you be honored for God to adorn you? It's an honor. So embrace that and know that your brothers are here to support you. To our Muslim brothers and sisters, or to our brothers and sisters in humanity who may have some questions, you know, about who may have some questions about Islam, please feel free to reach out to me. And for those of you who feel it in your hearts, you know, listening to this, and you know, if you want to become Muslim, it's easy. The Prophet Muhammad said these words are light on the tongue and heavy in the scales. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Light. It's light. And when you say those light words, you feel the light. And these are words that you will never stop saying. Sometimes people, when it comes to Islam, they worry about all the things that they have to do. No, it starts with faith. It starts with faith. So if you believe that, that's the first step in the right direction. So run with it. I see we got some I see we got some comments. James is quaking. He's doing it on purpose.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, let me read these real quick. How do you know about James Charles? Don't ask how I know, you ask how you know. Anita, Imam Isa, get ready with me. No. Oh no, we thank the organizers of this event, the MSAs who pulled together, the Embrace who helped set it up. We ask God Almighty to reward each and every single one of you. And for those of you who participated, we ask God Almighty to bless each and every single one of you. Please go ahead, Sister Isra. For those of you who have to go, you can go. If you want to stick around and ask the questions and stuff like that, please do. You can stick around and you can ask whatever you want. In the meantime, We ask God to bless each and every single one of you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ameen.